Welcome to the desert. The Dune Desert. Today, we'll be making a dozen of these. But to make them, we're gonna need a lot of those. That's gonna be 324 limestone, 300 bauxite ore, 348 H2O, 478 coal ore, 225 quartz ore, 192 nitrogen gas, 556 iron ore, and 338 crude oil barrels. All the raw materials will go through these machines and end up in a blender running the heated fused frame alternative recipe, producing 6 fused modular frames per minute. But if you add 4 of these bad boys, you can double that output at no additional material cost and produce 12 modular frames. 50% of the production will go towards phase 4 parts production, and the balance will be stored in our Dune Desert central storage, still to be constructed. Alright, so now we're on the ground floor. This is our main entrance. And then on the left here, you can see there's a staircase going down to the logistics floor for this first production floor. I'm just kind of like poke my head in here for a moment. There's a main bus that feeds all the parts that we need, all the raw items. Comes into this bus over here. There's a sink in here, so all the final product, once it's filled up, the dimensional depot as well as the temporary storage, it will go, all the excess will go in here, which just adds more and more tickets to us. So you can see the water coming in with along with the crude oil in the back, and then at the bottom you can see the empty canisters for both the water, the oil, the crude oil, as well as the nitrogen canisters. All of them going back, and they're basically being recycled, filled up again, and then just the full bottles are being pumped back into the factory, so we can just kind of like rinse and repeat the entire process. Alright, so let's head up here. Alright, so back onto the first production floor. You see I've kind of like gone with these display sections here for all the machines, so you can see what they're producing and just kind of monitor them as well a little bit. This is a steel screw recipe I'm using at the moment. Most of these ones are steel ones, so it just makes the logistics floor a little bit simpler. Then along with one iron belt coming in, or one iron ingot belt coming in, just to kind of like help these guys out. Alright, so these are the unpackages. So as soon as the water packager, or the packaged water comes in here, you can see it's kind of like sloshed in here. It goes into these pipes, which then goes down and then up on that side. This is the crude oil, and then this is the nitrogen gas being unbottled. There's our pipe, so we've got the fuel coming in for this one. So the crude oil will go into here. We'll convert this into fuel. All the resin will just get sunk immediately. The nitrogen gas is then going up here along with the water, and on that side we've got 2 pipes coming as well to feed the blender upstairs. Alright, so we're heading up here now. So this is our second logistics floor. As you can see, we've got a blender up here, so all the nitric acid is being made in these yellow pipes, and then all of them are pushed to that side, and we've kind of got like a vertical bus going there, just going up and then feeding all the machines per floor as needed. Right, so we can use the elevator if we want, but I've got this little nook here for the hover pack, which makes it quite convenient just to go up and down here. Right, so as I said, blenders up here. This one is doing all the nitric acid, which is needed for the final machine and producing the final product. And all of these are just there to kind of like fill out all the requirements needed for the parts manufacturing. So this will be reinforced plate. This is industrial encased industrial beams. And then, as I said, we've got the drone here that will bring us the concrete as and when we need it. So at the moment, it'd be chilling. Right, let's head on down. Right, this lift coming down here comes all the way from the top floor. There goes one, and there goes another one. So this one feeds all the way from the top. This is the final product, so the fused modular frames will be coming from the top floor down to this one, and it will go into what will be a central storage area that I still need to construct, but those ones will go there. At the moment I've got a central storage, I've got like a little bit of a storage setup upstairs, but that's just a temporary measure. Alright, so let's head up with our little jetpack nookie. Just another logistics floor. Again, as usual, I like to keep it nice and clean, easily walkable. And up here we can see we've got the modular frame production. So obviously these will then turn into heavy modular frame, which will then in turn get turned into fused modular frames. So all of these are just pushing frames up on the vertical bus. Alright, let's move on. There goes another 2. Alright, so this is the logistics floor for the blenders and the manufacturer upstairs. So you can see here's all the manufacturer belts feeding into that one. And this is our nitric acid and fuel that goes up to the blender upstairs. And then this is what I was talking about. This is the temporary setup where I've got a dimensional depot and a small storage setup here. So the overflow will then just go down to the sink at the moment. But this will all go as soon as my central storage is up and running, which will probably be the next episode. I've got a very cool modular one that I want to show you guys. Alright, so this is the final floor. This is kind of like a clean room effect that you got going here. And I've got a little bit of a display up here as well. So I've got Mark 1 belts just going around in like a little rotisserie kind of style. Just showcasing the heavy modular frames moving towards the blender, and then the final product, the fused modular frames, coming out of the blender. Right, we can have a closer look back here. It also acts as a kind of like an inspection area where you can kind of like stand over here, inspect and make sure that the items are of the quality that you want. Obviously you can also see if there's any issues, if there's nothing coming through, if the belt's back up, then you know, okay, there's a problem somewhere, I have to go investigate. Alright, so over here you can see I'm using the heavy flexible frame, which requires basically rubber is the one thing that you can't produce, that you'll have to import from somewhere else, unless you want to incorporate that into the build, but then it becomes quite a big building. So my rubber is being produced in the Spire Coast at the moment. I am planning on doing a big rubber and plastic factory somewhere here, but that's not necessarily for this build. Alright, over here you can see I've got my heavy modular frames moving in, and this is the fuel, nitric acid and aluminium. So this is the heated fused frame one. Adding the 4 cyber loops in there will then double it from 6 to 12, which is obviously excellent. And 6 of those, so 50% of the production, will go to all phase 4 buildings that I still need to construct for the final phase 4 production pods or space elevator pods, and then the rest will go to storage slash dimensional depot for your Mark 3 miners and whatever else I might need fused modular frames for, and then the rest will get sunk for big chunk of pods. Alright, we can check out the outside of the build. I can show you some of the design choices I made. There's a couple of noteworthy ones that I want to share. This is the bus. I kind of just open up this area just to show you guys what it all entails. And everything just comes from this big circle here. So this big circle is where the central tower is going to be. So it's going to be a massive tower going up here. But more on that later. All here is mostly temporary except for this wall. So this circular wall is how I'm going to feed all the raw materials coming in and out of the various builds and buildings around this area. But yeah, just to kind of showcase you guys, so just have the oil coming in, and then we've got an empty canister going out, and then same with the water, empty canisters on the outside, nitrogen, empty canisters on the outside going back and recycled and put back into circulation. Alright, so moving up here, the first one we've got is this cool little sign I've got here. And for the sign, all I did was I did the gradient on both the 1 meter, no, I believe that's a 2 meter, and then the 1 meter ones below. And then all you have to do is just swap the colors around. So let me show you what I mean. So you can see here I've got the darker color and the lighter color. So at the moment the darker color is on top and then the lighter one is below. And then if you go to the 1 meter one, so here you can see I've got the lighter colors higher up and I've got the darker color lower. So then it gives that kind of like gradient effect where you've got dark, light and dark again. Right, then further on we've got this little extrusion here, the little protrusions coming out here. This was done because when I did the build it was kind of just a bit blocky, and I thought, well, I need to do something just to spruce it up a little bit. So I've added these little sections coming out here. It's just a metal pillar, it's at whatever angle you want. And I did this in a blueprint maker, so let me show you what I mean. So if I go over here, you can see this is all just a one section, and it's pretty much just that. So just a pillar at an angle, and I've got some other pillars in there as well, or H-beams rather. And the reason I do these in the blueprint maker is because I actually take my time and I can do these corners nice. As you can see here, We've got some really nice joints going in here, and that little detail just kind of adds a lot more to the build itself. And then I just slap them all over the corners here. Another little detail here that's quite nice is this window. I really like this one. So I've been using this kind of like accent colors just to highlight the areas, and it's just normal H-beams, and just obviously making these little corners and these little bends. It takes a little time. I've showed it in a tutorial video how to get those lined up nicely. This is just a variant of that technique. But yeah, just adding the yellow trim on it just kind of makes everything pop a little bit. And then obviously accents on your accents, it's just these little these little lights. So adding these small little lights in here. On my cyber build, or my cyber city, which is in the Rocky Desert, I kind of went a little bit nuts with all the neon, and I think this is a better balance of neon where it just emphasizes the build. It doesn't overpower the build. So this is what I mean by just enough neon to make it look interesting. So let's make this nighttime, and let me turn off my light so you guys can see kind of the effect that you get from the neon, and then you obviously on the corners as well. So this is just a nice little touch, not too much. All right, let's go back to daytime so I can show you what's happening here. The other little noteworthy feature here is this little section here, which is just a panel with a background setting. So what I mean by that is you can take any of these. Let me show you what this is actually. This is the portrait sign. So you can grab this one and go to background, and then all the backgrounds here, these are all animated. So if you choose any one of those, just give it a nice little color, put up the glossiness and then the illumination or the emission strength, and just jack that up and keep this nice little pattern. And I just obviously just repeated it going all the way up. Then further on, for the floors, so I've got more lights just set in here. So you can see the different, like those little lights there, just to emphasize the area a little bit more, but not to overpower it with just lights everywhere. And I just added these kind of like pillars in here just to make the logistics floor seem a little bit more interesting. So when you stand back, the overall effect is quite nice. And then obviously just repeat it on the other side, or not. It's really up to you. And then for the roof, nothing special on the roof. So you'll see I just kind of like just did a little bit of an angular bit there, just to give it a little bit more definition. But I would say the roof is definitely not the strong part of this build. Alright, so we've got the blenders kind of poking out over here, and it just makes them a bit easier to fit into that section there, but also just it makes it also look a bit more interesting, so adds a little bit more of a dimension to it. Alright, over here we've got the refineries. These guys are doing our fuel, so crude oil to fuel, with the resin being sunk, and I just added them in this little section here. So the refineries are always a little difficult to put into a build unless it's all refineries, but this kind of works nice. And then as usual, I kind of have the chimneys have to go out, kind of like vent to the outside, or if it doesn't vent to the outside, at least have some sort of ventilation system within your build. This is the drone port that brings in our concrete. The drone's probably going to be coming in anytime soon. And this section I just kind of lined it with concrete bits, and then added this trim around the edges, which obviously is illuminated as well because you can see there's signs in there. So right, there's the drone, nice. Right, so if we turn this nighttime again, you can see it just kind of like accents this little section there, and it kind of fits with this design element over here, and it just brings it along nicely. Whoop, I'm running out of power. There we go. Alright, and then just to make the build a little bit more interesting, I just kind of add this little bit here. There's no reason for it except that I need a slightly longer floor. So instead of having a floor, instead of having the wall, because of the longer floor, go all the way down and do like a big square one, just do a slight little angle there. And then just to finish up that wall section, I just use pillars to go straight across, just because there isn't really any other real option for custom angles, unless you want to do the normal angled walls, but they are quite steep and it doesn't fit in this one. That's it for the Fuse Modular Frame Factory. Quite a nice little addition for my Dune Desert biome. This factory in its entirety will go on to my Patreon as a mega print, so this will be available for my tier 3 supporters. And you guys can look forward to having this one there. So if you want this in your world, you can just plonk it wherever you want, and just be sure to feed it whatever raw materials it requires. And then again, I'd like to thank my patrons in general just for your continuous support. The time you guys spend supporting me is what allows me to build these interesting kind of builds, to make all the various blueprints and mega prints that I can. And I'll strive to give you guys more and more as we progress with this save. So, thank you for staying to the end, and I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you on the next one.